So you tend just to be so focused on that thing that is lacking that you cannot see. It's impossible for you to see all the good things and all the blessings that are in your life. So when I say zoom out or just like take a step back, so you can see that there is much more to your life than just this one thing that is maybe not manifested yet, that maybe it will manifest soon or in the future. So when we take a step back and look at life from afar, and as if I'm in a movie and I'm watching my life as if it is a movie, and start observing yourself from afar, you start seeing more of the
Mm.
beautiful things that are in your life. You will see the other stuff too, but you will see that the other things that are going really well in your life, the blessings in your life are much more than the maybe things that are challenging, or the things that you would like to change.
Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today, with us, we have Nathalie Sader. She's a clinical psychologist, and she was always passionate about human happiness, health, and wellness. We definitely share some common values, and I think her story is quite interesting. Growing up in a country where being a woman is a challenge, Nathalie was living in survival mode, exhausted to meet society's standards that dictate how a woman should look, feel, think, and act. After she moved to the US, her spiritual and self-love journey started at the moment she discovered a life in her womb. Sometimes it takes another human being to make you love yourself again, she says. Recently, after she graduated as a certified holistic health coach from YIIN, she founded My Food Innergy to fulfill her life purpose and mission, empowering women to love themselves again unconditionally and rejoice in their femininity through healthy and delicious eating, creative positive thoughts, attracting fulfilling relationships, developing an inspiring spiritual practice, discovering pleasurable body movement, and finding their true calling in life so they can feel and look fabulous. And if you will check her Instagram, you will see that she's a living proof of all of these things. And I think that's amazing. Nathalie, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you so much, Georgian. I'm very, very grateful to be on this podcast with you tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's a real pleasure to have you on, and I'm really curious about one thing about your story. How was it to be a woman in Lebanon? I think this can be really interesting for our gratitude seekers, many of whom are women, and most of them being from the US or Australia or Canada. And I think it can be quite an interesting perspective to start with.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to start by talking, about negative stuff. We really honor women in a certain way, but in so many other ways also, women they find it very challenging to navigate through life. And by that I mean they are respected, they are by their families, by their husband, but being a woman is very challenging because the society is very demanding when it comes to women. A woman should look in a certain way, she should behave in a certain way, she should talk in a certain way, she should get married at a certain age. So there's a lot of limitations, which makes a woman a little less free to be who she really want to be. So she can meet society standards. And it may sound like it's like this everywhere else in the world. And maybe this is true, but in Lebanon and in the Arab world in general, it is more challenging because women, they are fighting, to get some of their rights, some of the, the birth rights. So yeah, sometimes you live, just like when I was living there, just to meet some standards. So you really forget who you really are and who you want to be. So you can, satisfy your parents or your partner or your friends or the society you live in. So when I moved here in the US, I felt the difference, and I could really cut all the cords and just, remember who I am, remember who I really want to be, and feel free, feel the freedom of just thinking, talking, just, being who I want to be. Just even with like, putting on clothes, you can feel more free because nobody's gonna judge you. Yeah, there's a lot of judgment over there. There's a lot of judgment if you are not like everybody else, or if you are not like you are supposed to be, you're gonna be judged a lot, and you're gonna be shamed. um, so yeah, that was a big challenge growing up there.
I can imagine. And the reason why I asked you this question is not particular to start with something negative, but I think when we have perspective, when we have contrast, we get to appreciate what we have, because
exactly.
we get used to the freedoms that we have, and we don't realize that in other parts of the world these freedoms are a luxury. They are like something that people really fight for and have to make many efforts to enjoy, right?
Right. And I didn't mean by what I said, I like when I said I don't want to start by something negative, I didn't mean to address this to you or to me or to the people here, but to the people who may now in Lebanon and listening to us. And they will be like, oh, she starts talking, like she starts trashing, the Lebanese traditions or things like that. Because I also know how people think there. So I didn't want to sound like I'm just starting with, pointing at what not going right there.
Yeah, so there are traditions that are that work for many people in there. So yeah, it's not about that, but it's about having different perspectives. Like your perspective is definitely unique since you've been you've grown up there, and for someone that was always in a free society with different kinds of rules, this can be really interesting, and
I understand that.
Can be quite a how could I say it?
Like eye-opening.
Yeah, exactly. That it could be really different just being born in another part of the world. And
and this is why I really appreciate now the freedom that I have, and the freedom that I experienced when I moved here, and that led me to be the person I am today. I really appreciate this. And when I have like American friends, and when I come in contact with American people, I tell them, we have something in this country that, we need to cherish more, and we need to be grateful more, more often. We have a freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of being whoever you want to be, freedom of thinking, which can be quite challenging in other parts of the world.
Exactly. And I also wanted to get to another point that you made over on Instagram, zooming out and looking at life from a different perspective, rather than what's missing to what are your blessings. Could you expand on this a little bit?
Yes. Sometimes when we look from like a very, very, very close perspective, like by close, I mean like maybe limited or narrow, we tend to not to see the whole picture. Let me explain a little more. sometimes when we are so focused on what's not going right in our world or in our life, we tend to like, and when you focus on something, you tend not to see what's around you or like what's around that thing. So you tend just to be so focused on that thing that is lacking that you cannot see. It's impossible for you to see all the good things and all the blessings that are in your life. So when I say zoom out or just like take a step back, so you can see that there is much more to your life than just this one thing that is maybe not manifested yet, that maybe it will manifest soon or, you know, in the future. So when we take a step back and we look, and sometimes I like to tell my client and even myself, because I also get sometimes stuck in, you know, and just focusing on one thing. I tell
Yeah.
myself or my client just to uh, step back and look at my life from afar, and as if I'm in a movie and I'm watching, you know, my life as if it is a movie. And when you do that and you just start observing yourself from afar, you start seeing more of the
Mm.
beautiful things that are in your life. You will see the other stuff too, but you will see that the other things that are going really well in your life, the blessings in your life are much more than the maybe things that are challenging, or you know, the things that you would like to change. So yeah, and this also will make the practice of gratitude a little easier, because you know, some people will tell me, okay, so how I'm gonna practice gratitude? Okay, I'm gonna say I'm grateful for this and for that. So they don't really get a sense of it. So when I tell them to do this, it really clicks with them.
Yeah,
Just,
it
just to separate yourself from your life, from your own life, and just watch it from afar, like you're watching a movie.
exactly. I love this
Yeah,
idea. I love this
yeah.
idea.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I think it's so powerful because you get to be more detached and to see things more objectively. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, you will be more objective about it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, because you're not in like in the first person. You're
An
like
active
in
participant. Yeah,
yeah,
you're just
yeah.
watching. You're just an observer now. Yeah, exactly.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I think this can be really useful for our listeners to just look at life from a third person, from
Mm-hmm.
like it would be a movie.
Yeah.
And from some points of view, I think it kind of is like we play different roles in life, and
Mm-hmm.
we identify more or less with different roles.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, it is kind of like a movie.
Yeah, and it's, and now I remember something, because before I, you know, started this journey of, you know, being grateful and, you know, coming from love and abundance, other than, you know, lack and fear. I used to live my life in a complete opposite way. I wasn't like that, you know, all my life. And that's the contrast, I think, like you were saying, this is what made me also like appreciate the new journey I am on. So before, I used to tell, even like I used to, you know, when you study psychology, you have to go and do some sessions yourself with you know, like your mentor or your a psychiatrist or a
Hmm.
psychologist. So I was doing this personal therapy, and I used to tell him, I feel like I'm not actively participating in my life.
Mm.
So I used to feel like life was just, you know, happening to me. And I had no control. I had no power at all. I was more in a victim place, or in a victim role. And everything was just happening to me. And I was just the victim. I would like be happy whenever things are, you know, nice and happy. And I would get sad when things are challenging. And, you know, I was just reacting to life. So it gave me that feeling that I wasn't participating in my life at all. So now when you said, you know, we play different roles, I didn't feel like I was playing any role.
Mm.
It felt like it was like more passive for me.
I see. I see. And what made you switch to gratitude? Like, did you have some kind of experience, or how did you discover gratitude?
Well, I cannot really say there was one thing only that led me to gratitude. It's more of different things. And it really started when I moved here. Maybe because I had more time to just be with myself. Because when I moved here, I didn't have anybody, like no family, no friends. So there was less distractions. So this helped me to, to have more self-awareness. And, like the journey has been quite long. At the beginning, it started, as I said, when I got pregnant. Uh, it was like something, like super new to me. It's like when you get pregnant, this is not like something that you've experienced before, or like, you had a taste of before. So this is something very, very new. And it's like, it kind of, like shook me to the core. Like I wanted, and I was a little bit anxious because I was, as I told you, I was like living, and I got pregnant right away when I came back from Lebanon. I got married, I got pregnant. So I was still in that, state of, anxiety, and like feeling that anything can happen at any moment that could, take away things away from me. I was living from a place of fear all the time, and, lack, and, things may happen at any moment. So when I got pregnant, I was like, I can't live this way anymore. I can't just, let fear dominate my life anymore. So something was awakened within me that I needed to change. And, this is when the journey started. I wanted to change. And when you decide you want to change, and when you decide there's something bigger or there's something better for you, the universe starts, playing all the synchronicities. And you just start going from one thing to another. And the first thing I think and this is something I never shared before, and even though I wouldn't go into details into this, but I also had a physical issue that also, it was like part of the healing. It was part of the awakening. And I started by, changing my food at the beginning, because, you think food is, maybe this is the easiest change you can make. So I was really focused on food on the beginning, but then I figured, it was like food was only just a tiny part of the equation. And this led me to just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And, along the way, I discovered that I didn't call it gratitude back then, but I discovered that whatever I focus on, it will grow. So before I was focusing on fear, I was focusing on the lack in my life. Oh, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, I have problems. Nothing was going well in my life. And then I discovered that if I shift my focus to better things are gonna start happening in my life. And it just happened little by little. Like you don't wake up one day and you say, oh, I'm gonna be grateful because I think this is gonna work. So like there's tiny pieces of the puzzle, and they just start coming together. So first I started by realizing that whatever I focus on, this is what I'm creating in my life. When this physical issue came out, so I started focusing on I started changing my thoughts. And it's hard. It's not easy at the beginning. It took me a long time. It took me like I'm not gonna say a long time, but it took me quite some time to just change my old beliefs, change the way I look at things, change the way I think about things. And this is when I also started. One day I remembered a sentence my dad used to tell me before, and I used to think, when you're a teenager, you think, you tend to think that your parents, they're like old-fashioned or something like that.
Yeah.
But now I just keep this in my heart. He used to tell me contentment. He used to like he said that in Arabic, but the translation would be the contentment is an eternal or like an endless treasure. He used to tell me that contentment is an endless treasure. And I used to think, oh my God. And I used to tell him that you're so lacking ambition. You're not ambitious at all. How can you think this way? And little that I knew that when we really like are content with what we have, when we really are happy with what we have, because when you are content with what you have, you start appreciating it, and you start feeling grateful for it, and you start focusing on the things that are going well in your life. And this is when all your life is gonna start shifting, because as I said before, when wherever your focus is, this is what you are creating, this is what you are vibrating with, this is what you are activating. So little by little, I came to this, understanding that I have a lot to be grateful for in my life. And maybe I knew it before, but I didn't want to admit it. I knew I had a lot, but I wanted more. And I thought, and this is very important, I thought that if I just, accept that I have good things in my life, this is going to prevent me from becoming more. That was also an old belief for me. I used to believe that, if I'm content, this means I'm not ambitious. This means I'm going to stay wherever I am. I didn't know how the universe works back then. So, yeah.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned this quote from your father, and the fact that you thought at that point that he was lacking ambition, because it actually reminded me of a quote from Oprah. And she's a person that doesn't lack ambition, and that's also very abundant and prosperous. And it goes something like this: be thankful for what you have, you'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never, ever have enough.
Exactly. But I'm telling you, back then, I didn't, like, my understanding of things is that if you're happy with what you have, this means you're going to stay there. If you're content with the little things that you have in your life, this means you're not going to do the hard work to get more. So it's like a whole other belief. And, and then you grow up, and then you understand more as you mature.
Exactly. And indeed, these two are, so they work together. The more grateful you are for the things that you have in your life, the more of those kind of things you attract and you create in your life. And the beautiful part is that you will enjoy what you have. And
exactly,
it won't just be a race.
That's another benefit from gratitude. It's not only that the universe is gonna give you more of what you are grateful for, it is that you are going to be joyful and happy in the process.
Exactly.
Because if somebody's not grateful, like, let's say we all like want more money, okay? Somebody who like with little money can be very grateful for what they have, and another person with like millions of dollars can be very like ungrateful and still wanting more. And this person who has like millions, he's gonna always want more. And let's say he's gonna have trillions, he's gonna always want more. And in the betweens, that's what's important. In the betweens, he's gonna always, if he's ungrateful, he's not gonna be happy.
Exactly.
So what's the point of like having more or like getting what you want if you're not grateful? Because gratitude makes you happy in the process, in the in-betweens, from wherever you are to where you want to be. So that's a very good point you just made, and I love that.
Yeah, and life is about the journey, because we get to places, and that's important, but especially when we have big goals, they take a while, and until we get there, just waiting until we get to that point, to that goal, what do we do in the meantime? Like it could be really hard.
Exactly. The thing is to learn how to be happy and content and grateful in the betweens, because in the betweens, this is what takes the most time. Because like when you're building a house, when the house is like already built and it's already done, it's done.
Yeah.
And when you have a dream, you have a dream, but it's in the between. It's between your dream and the manifestation. That's what takes the most of time. And this is when you really need to make yourself in that state, to bring yourself in that state of gratitude and joy and happiness. So things can be, pleasant. They can be more enjoyable for you. Because as I said, if you get this house or if you get this money, but along the way you were miserable and you were not happy and you were not grateful and you were so stressed all the time, when you're gonna get there, you're gonna feel like, oh my God, that was so exhausting. And it's not gonna feel the same.
Exactly. And it would be weird to feel grateful because you don't have the habit. You're not
Exactly.
used to feeling grateful, and you tend to go back, and usually to going back to the same kind of pattern in which you need to go to the next thing and reach another
Exactly.
goal, bigger one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
And it
true.
really is a muscle. It really is a muscle. And we need to practice it. Like some days I just, I'm just preparing my matcha or my coffee or whatever, my tea. And little things come to my mind now, and they come naturally because I've been practicing this for so long. And when I'm like holding my cup, I feel appreciation for, those muscles in my arms and hand that gives me the ability to be able to hold the cup and enjoy my matcha in the morning. Little things, it doesn't have to be, big things. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It doesn't have to be, I mean, it's great and you can get whatever you want in life. But being grateful and appreciating the little, like the very little things, this is huge. And this will make you also aware, and this will make you realize how, like, we have millions of things to be grateful for in our life. Millions.
Exactly.
From the air we breathe to the to the our eyes, we can see the world, like things we really take for granted.
That's so true. And one of the things that I love about what you are doing is, we eat every day. And I think what we eat is important. Like I can feel whenever I eat properly, that for me, it's easier to get into a feeling of gratitude and also
Yeah.
appreciating what I'm eating. And yeah, I think you have some amazing pictures on
Thank you so
Instagram,
much.
and also recipes and all kinds of
Thank you.
very beautiful and very useful things. And do you want to let us know a little bit about this part of your life? And
The food part.
yeah.
So as I said, when I got this, when I got married, I didn't know how to cook. Because in Lebanon we live with our parents in the same house until we get married, and the mom does all the cooking, and we are a little spoiled back there. So I didn't know how to cook. I didn't think about food back then, and in Lebanon we eat mostly, especially at the time back then when I moved here, people eat, mostly a Mediterranean diet, which is mostly healthy and based on fruits and vegetables and nuts and grains. So when I moved here, like my first cultural shock was with food because, we were eating outside and, it's all like, mostly overly processed and fast food sometimes. And the portions were so big for me. So I started like having, like physical signs, maybe because I'm not used to the food, and of course because it's not the healthiest. So that was also like another aha moment in my life, that what we eat also affect us on a certain level. So this is why I started, I started having more interest in the food that I'm eating, and I started learning how to cook, and it turned out that I have, a certain talent in cooking. So I just developed that, and I found pleasure in just, creating, especially because I started having kids and I wanted to give them the best I can. And then the photography part also came from just tapping into my creative space. because I used to think that I wasn't a creative person at all, and I wasn't, like until like my late 20s. But then I realized that every person is creative. You just have to tap into it to try different things so that you can find where your creative space is, and you need to practice it like anything else. And this is when you get, better and better at it. So, and I think food is very attractive. Uh, so sometimes I just use it to to just attract people to other things that I do. This is
That's
also another
beautiful.
another secret. And also talking about food. And I'm gonna share something also I may not have shared before. Talking about contrast and how we can be grateful when we come from contrast. I still remember some days when I was little, I didn't have any food to eat. And I experienced, what it means to starve and what it means to feel hungry. And now I'm saying this, and I'm not sad about it, because now this makes me feel even more grateful for the food I have today on the table. And this makes me feel like every time I prepare food, every time I put food on the table, I say thank you. And I feel an immense gratitude in my heart for the food I have today, because I know what it means not to have anything to eat. I really know the feeling.
Wow.
And this is also another thing we may take for granted in our life, that, we have food, we eat. We're not aware of, this blessing we have.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And it's so powerful. Like we say the words like to how it would be to starve and to not have food, but most of us actually didn't go through that experience. And having gone through that, I think it's really quite a perspective, quite a different way of seeing life, and of seeing the fact that we are blessed indeed to have food and to have the choice, the possibility of choosing
and
different
abundance.
kinds of exactly.
Yeah.
So unfortunately we are nearing the end of our time together, but I want you to let our audience know where they can find you on Instagram or on your website.
Instagram, my name is Nathalie Sader, NATHALIE Don't forget the H. And my website is also the same, www.nataliesader.com. And you can, get in touch with me through DMs, or by following my page, or through my website, or send me an email if you would like to get in touch with me. I would love that. I would love feedback. I would love, to hear more, about what you think about this, this episode, this podcast. And I'm very, very grateful I had the opportunity to talk with you tonight. Thank you so much.
My
pleasure.
Thank
you so much for everybody who's listening.
It's been a real pleasure, and I'm really happy that we got to talk and to share different perspectives from different parts of the world, and on life and on how we could be grateful for what we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey Gratitude Seeker, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this interview. I really appreciate it. And if you could think of one person that would also benefit from it, share it with them. It might actually be the inspiration that they need to make their day, or maybe even their life, much better. Thank you so much once again. This has been Georgian Benta. Don't forget to keep seeking and spreading gratitude.